if we know it's a question, it'll be easier to stand out. All right. Welcome to Impact, Expansion, and Contribution, how we are changing the community working group. Thanks, Jordana, for that very catchy title. So before I introduce us, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the community working group and why we're here. So we're a group of volunteers, community volunteers, and our mission is to foster a friendly and welcoming community for the Drupal project and to uphold the Drupal Code of Conduct. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself, and then Mike and Jordana can introduce themselves, and then we'll also introduce Alex, who is not here because it is absurdly late in the United Kingdom. My name is George Demet, and I have been a member of the CWG since its very beginning back in 2013. I have been the chair since the spring of 2016 now. And, you know, I am based outside of Chicago, like I said, and yeah, it's been a long, crazy ride. Jordana, you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Jordana Fung. I'm based out of Suriname, South America. I also speak Dutch, which is my first language, technically. I started with the Drupal Community Working Group in May 2017. And shortly before that, I decided to, because we don't have any local camps and conferences and stuff, to make my way to DrupalCamp Florida in 2015. That was my first ever Drupal event where I met Mike Anello. And it was such a great part to be part of the community, and I fell in love. So I knew you'd have to beat me to get me out of the community. So.
All right, so George, I'm so bad at like years and how long I've been doing stuff. What year did you become chair? Did you say? George?
I became chair right after you joined.
So what? So how long?
So you joined at the end of 2015.
Okay, so there you go. I've been in the community working group for about 4.5 years, apparently. I don't know what more there is to say.
You could actually say like where you are and like things you do in the community, stuff like that.
I'm located in Florida, so blame me or compliment me for getting Jordana more ingrained in the community. I'll take that either way. I'm a Drupal trainer and consultant. I do I mentor some students. I contribute to event planning here in Florida and some other areas.
And then I'll go ahead and introduce, like I said, Alex, who isn't here. Alex Burrows is based in the UK. He's also very involved with DrupalCamp London and other kind of Drupal community stuff in the UK. He also works as a like volunteer police constable. So we hear all sorts of amazing stories from him all the time about some of the stuff that goes on. So we are, the four of us are the kind of core conflict resolution team. So essentially, if you are having a conflict with another member of the community, or if you want to report a violation of the Drupal Community Code of Conduct, and you go to Drupal.org and you click on the incident report form, or if you send an email to Drupal-CWG@Drupal.org, we are the only four people that report goes to. And so all of us, are, we maintain confidentiality, all of this stuff. So we field those reports. Now, in terms of who we report to, we have what's known as the CWG Review Panel. And so this is actually something that a change that was made within the last couple of years. So prior to, I think, the beginning of 2019, we were our charter, our authority, and everything essentially came directly from DREES. And so if there was something that needed to be escalated beyond us, or someone had an appeal or something like that, back in the day, it would go directly to DREES. That was not sustainable. It was not scalable. So a couple years back, we overhauled the governance, and so essentially, if there is either an issue that we feel we can't field, or that we need some extra advice on, or if someone is unhappy with how we've handled a situation, or wants to appeal a decision that we've made, then that goes to our CWG Review Panel. The Review Panel consists of the 2 community elected members of the Drupal Association Board, as well as an independent representative who's not, a part of the Drupal community, but is involved in open source. And that person is appointed by the board of the DA as a whole. And so in addition to being kind of our point of escalation, everything, this review panel is also responsible for keeping us accountable. So if one of us, does something that, isn't, requires action, they have to approve, they can remove any of us. If there is someone who is going to be added to the conflict resolution team, then again, they would have to agree on that. And so that's Suzanne Dergasheva, who's on the DA board, Leslie Glynn, who's on the DA board, and Jono Bacon, who is a pretty well-known author, speaker, a very long history with community management and open source. And so we as a group actually don't interact with them terribly often, which is a good thing. But they are there, and they're kind of our central point of accountability. Mike or Jordana, did either of you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was gonna just mention one. You might want to. We have a slide for the review panel, if you want.
That's the one I'm on, right?
Oh, I'm not seeing that. Okay, I'll be quiet. Is it just me? That's weird.
I don't know. What slide are you seeing?
I'm only seeing the first one. Okay, well, it's
All
something
right.
on my end. So
Okay.
yeah, I was going to mention since we had the review panel implemented, I think there's only been one occurrence where they have been called on.
I think maybe two.
Okay.
2, but yeah.
We had one where we brought them in for consultation, and one where we gave them a heads up of a potential situation.
Okay. Right. Okay. Yeah. So I just want to mention, even though they're there, and it does actually bring us comfort that they're there, and I think it brings the 4 of us comfort that they're community elected, but the majority of them are community elected. We've been lucky that we haven't actually needed to bring them in.
Awesome. Jordana, did you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, it's just handy to have another set of eyes when we just feel stuck or we're not sure, to just be able to have that group, because they're 2 community elected officials and somebody who has a lot of experience. It is great. It just gives us a good something to fall back on. Yep.
So then we also have, and this is new as of this spring, this is the community health team. And so the community health team is a larger group of, again, community volunteers, folks who we have either reached out to or who have reached out to us. And they don't field incident reports. They're not responsible for conflict resolution. What these folks do is actually help work on some of the proactive community health, things that we simply don't always have the bandwidth to work on. And so this has been pretty new. I think we've been meeting since March of this year, but we've already published a couple of posts. We've got some other stuff we'll talk about later, but this has been having this community health team which consists of folks who are dedicated specifically to community health issues, as well as event support, subject matter experts, either for different regions or different types of topics, like whether it's mental health or industry or whatever, as well as folks who are representatives of other groups and constituencies, whether that's the Drupal Association or Drupal Diversity and Inclusion. Having that's really tremendous. And I do want to give a big shout out to Tara King, who spent a lot of time over the last, between I think November, December, and March of this year, working with us to really help identify and put a structure around this. So that's been really, really appreciated.
A lot of time, patience, and love went into that.
Yes. A lot of very long calls where the rest of us were rambling on for a while.
We should probably also mention that there's still, we're still looking for more people, especially in the subject matter expert area for other parts of the world other than Western Europe and North America and Suriname. So those are all open roles as far as we're concerned, and we are always on the lookout for folks from Southeast Asia, India, Eastern Europe. I mean, you name it. If you know someone who might be a good fit for the community health team, please send them our way.
Yeah.
The community health team is amazing because we have a lot of people that want to help, but don't necessarily want to have anything to do with conflict resolution. SME specific topics is also one of them. We have like people that do the industry. So for sure, there's different things and things we probably haven't thought of either. So if you are interested, please just come find us, come talk to us, because it's a great way to kind of help out. And it's on whenever you can. Like certain things, if you take it upon you, we hope you can finish it. But if whenever anybody needs help or needs time, it is something, of course, we understand.
And I guess to further answer that question, as far as specific topics, if in the conflict resolution issue, if there is either a mental health component, or perhaps there's a component that involves the Drupal agency that we don't feel we are fully qualified to handle, that's when we would read in our subject matter experts on individual issues. Dr. Drapkin is
Mike. You're a couple slides ahead. You're getting into stuff we're going to cover. Yeah.
Okay.
We have a slide where we're going to talk about the different relationship between the different folks. So before we get to that and dig into more on how the community health team relates to and is distinct from the conflict resolution, or you might call CWG Classic, right? Which we're still working out names.
Names, so please.
Yeah.
If you have,
we were thinking CWG open. Max, CWG Plus, CWG Go. Yeah.
No, we weren't. No, we weren't.
Yeah. I do want to kind of, so now we've kind of introduced who we are and everything. I want to present this slide that gives you kind of a sense of what the overall governance structure looks like, because it's not always clear to everyone. So the three of us who are on this call, again, we are the community working group conflict resolution team, and we sit in the middle of that slide you can see there. At the very top of our governance is the Drupal Association Board of Directors. That is who our charter is through. They are kind of our chartering authority, right? And as a practical matter, we are then overseen by that community working group review panel, which consists of 2 members of the Drupal Association board, the community elected ones, along with that independent representative who is appointed by the DA board as a whole. So then they oversee us, the conflict resolution team. We have and then we have the community health team, which consists again of the community health, event support, ambassadors, and then we have the subject matter experts. The subject matter experts being folks who we may bring in on a as needed basis to help us out with specific expertise on, issues where we just might need a little bit more context or information. Mike has provided a link to the CWG Code of Ethics. So all of us, within that CWG structure are bound by the CWG Code of Ethics, which, is a document that we put together, talks about things like confidentiality, conflict of interest, things like that kind of, because we are often dealing with some kind of fairly thorny issues, we want to make sure that we're all very clear on what the expectations are and hold ourselves to a standard that goes above and beyond, what you might expect if you were just doing everyday volunteer community work. So Mike's provided a link to that, and you can look at it. Who wants to talk about what we do? I've done enough talking for a while. Mike, you're it.
All right, so I'm guessing we're on the
what we do slide, Mike.
Okay.
I can do it then. If you can't see, I'll do it because they're.
No, I have the slides in another window, but go ahead, Jordana. That's fine. I'll defer. Happy to defer.
Thank you. So we help resolve conflicts between community members. We generally hope people can try to resolve it themselves, but if they can or need advice, we are here. We uphold the Drupal Code of Conduct. The Drupal Code of Conduct is encompassing over Drupal.org, the issue queues, all of the. I might be making a mistake here. Events. Drupal flag. Flag, that kind of stuff.
Right. So essentially, yes. It's kind of community activities that are either on Drupal.org or where that body has basically adopted the Drupal Community Code of Conduct. So Drupal Slack would be an example. Drupal Chat would be an example. I know that some of the social media spaces like Facebook, like one of the Drupal community Facebook pages, large ones, has adopted the Community Code of Conduct. And so we look kind of first and foremost to the folks who are the administrators or moderators of those community spaces to uphold the Drupal Code of Conduct in their space. If it is an issue, again, where they need help, or whether it's an issue that may span multiple community spaces, that's generally where we come in. There are also issues where, for example, a conflict between community members may occur related to Drupal, related to the community, but the conflict may not occur in a dedicated community space. That's probably where we're engaging in more of a conflict resolution capacity. But, again, the standard of the Code of Conduct may come into play there as well.
Yeah. So other things we also do, an amazing thing we absolutely love is the Aaron Winborn Award, where we recognize community members who go above and beyond. You see some pictures on the slide of past winners. Tomorrow at UTC, we will be presenting, George will be presenting our Aaron Winborn Award winner.
Oh, I guess I will be.
Yeah. But yeah. Well,
it's right before the Mitchell Baker keynote.
Okay, there you go. We also provide resources, consultation, and advice to the community, and share best practices and with other open source community and projects. Thank you, Ali. Like it's right there. So basically, we try to improve the overall community health in any ways we can. That's why the community health team is such a great addition, because we get to do more of the proactive things instead of like only the reactive things that sometimes take a lot of energy.
Yeah. Mike, did you have anything to add?
No, I think we're good.
Excellent. So you Mike, can present the next slide. Which is the one.
I think I already did.
Pretty much. I just, I think with this one, we want it to be really, really clear, that and I said this earlier, and I do want to reiterate it. The conflict resolution team is are the only folks who see incident reports when they come in, and so the community health team is separate from that conflict resolution process by design. The exception would be if someone is a dedicated subject matter expert in an area, we could bring them in as needed. So, for example, we have had issues where we have had someone who does not speak or understand English very well and is much more comfortable communicating in a different language. If we know or have someone who is fluent in that language, then we can bring them in to help with translation or to provide cultural context and understanding. We have also had occasion where we've had issues where we believe there's a mental health component at play, and we were unsure on our team of how to handle that. So, we would bring in somebody who has more experience and expertise in that area to help advise us on, how to handle this particular issue. So those would be those examples. But I wanted to make sure that was really clear to folks because, even though both of these teams are now kind of under the broader community working group umbrella, it really is a very small subset of that larger team that is dealing with and handling code of conduct or conflict resolution issues.
We also want to say that we take this very seriously. So if there is an incident report where one of us should not participate, if we have, is that on the slide? I'm not sure.
It's not on the slide, but it's a really good thing to talk about, Jordana.
Yeah. So if we have I forget, I'm
conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest, or if somebody needs to talk about one of us, we excuse ourselves, of course. So that should also be possible, where we don't take part in the conversations unless we speak to the community member in question that's bringing up the report, and they feel comfortable with us sharing that information. So,
yeah.
I'm also add that we take privacy really seriously. Everybody involved in any conflict resolution issue, generally, names do not leave. The four of us. If we do bring in a subject matter expert, we generally clear it with everybody involved in the issue before we do that. That's something that is always, right there at the front of everything we do when we're dealing with conflict resolution. The other thing I'll say about the community health team is one of the issues that we've had, and I believe it predated my joining the CWG, is it's difficult to get new members on the CWG.
Right.
It's difficult to go from not being a member of the CWG to suddenly being in the middle of the conflict resolution team. So one of our longer term goals with the community health team was to provide some type of on-ramp for the conflict resolution team. So we're hoping that will actually kind of be a nice, whether it's you call it a side benefit or what, but George has been on the committee for a long time.
Yep.
Apparently I've been on the committee for a long time, and we need to make sure that there's a healthy turnover of members.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's actually one of the things that is built into our charter, is essentially that if you're part of the conflict resolution team, it's essentially 2 3-year terms. And so I'm very aware that I have been part of the CWG for longer than 6 years, and I'm looking forward to the place where I can go and be maybe a subject matter expert, where I'm not involved in every single issue that comes along, but because I have been around for a long time, I do have a lot of institutional memory, and so maybe that would be the subject matter I would be an expert on, is didn't we deal with an issue with this person, 5 or 6 years ago? But we really are, looking to continue to have that, kind of fresh blood and turnover and everything. Because dealing with some of the issues that we've had to deal with, but can be pretty mentally exhausting, and it's a lot of emotional labor. So I'm gonna jump to the next slide here. This is the what have we been up to lately? Who wants to talk about that? Mike.
Okay, I was wondering if it was going to be me or not. I'm going to go. We're getting kind of short on time already, so I'll go through pretty quickly. Aaron Winborn Award we've talked about. We have been in the opening throes of a review of our community code of conduct. We know that it's definitely getting a little long in the tooth, so we're looking for community volunteers to help in that effort.
It's something we're already engaging the community health team in as well. So just want to make sure. And, I suspect we're going to bring in other community stakeholders as well.
Right. We put out some, what we call kind of proactive blog posts. Amy June was a big part of these first two recently. The third one, balancing accountability and compassion. The Drupal community talked a lot about folks who were previously banned from one aspect of the community or another, who were looking to rejoin the community, and kind of what that process looks like and stuff like that. Proactive workshops. We have the the code of conduct contact training, which has been ongoing, and we're hoping to add a mental health first aid virtual workshop here in the next couple months. We recently had a well-being hour with our mental health subject matter expert, Dr. Dropkin. That was recorded. I believe that's on Drupal TV already.
It's well worth watching.
And yes, and over the past year, we have released, and now we are in the process of updating Drupal event code of conduct templates and playbooks as well. So we really think we've got a lot of work behind us, but also there's a lot of upside to us providing solid resources for Drupal community events all over the world.
Yeah, so the slide actually continues. So Mike, you had mentioned the mental health first aid workshop. For those who aren't familiar, mental health first aid is a kind of international program that essentially, if you think of like a Red Cross first aid course, it's the same idea. It's designed for folks to help people who might be experiencing a mental health emergency get to the help that they need. Obviously, we were going to do this right before DrupalCon Minneapolis. Obviously, that didn't happen. The Mental Health First Aid organization is working on converting their content to virtual. We just heard this past week that they've done so, and so we're hoping to schedule some workshops specifically for members of the Drupal community soon. Mike had talked a little bit about the code of conduct contact training. We're really hoping to kind of get more visibility for folks who have been through that training, and to really kind of encourage as much as possible camps and other Drupal events to have someone on their team who has completed the code of conduct contact training. If you've never fielded a code of conduct incident or report before, this is invaluable. It really helps you identify what to do, what not to do. We've been working with Sage Sharp from OtterTech on that. We're looking forward to continuing that. Who wants to talk about nudges? That's a little thing we're working on as well.
I'll do it real quick. So this is something we're just getting ramped up on. We've been talking about doing something in this area for a while, but now with the community health team in place, we feel we're starting to get enough people involved where we can tackle something like this. But the idea here is that we want to be able to provide certain members of the Drupal community with elevated roles the ability to, if they see an issue queue conversation going off the rails, to provide some sort of standard templated language to remind everyone that this is an issue. Maybe we need to step away for a few minutes. Maybe, remember, don't turn this into personal attacks or whatever is actually happening. We want to provide some templates so that not everything has to be immediately escalated to a CWG conflict resolution issue. And we just think these little nudges, perhaps both in Slack and in issue queues, might go a long way.
Yeah.
So we're just in the very early stages of how are we going to do this, identifying what type of nudges, what exactly that language is going to be, how would the text that is part of that template come across in different cultures. So it's not going to be an easy task, but we feel that this could really, have some positive long-term impacts in the community.
Yeah, we think it's very worthwhile.
I think Jordana, you should probably talk about the next one.
Yeah. So we have been working with other open source communities. We have this thing in our head where we would love to have what we call the UN of open source, where we could all kind of, all of the open source communities can learn from each other, can work with each other to make like all of open source, all of the communities just healthier, safer, and better. Mm-hmm. With certain things having to do with community health, Drupal has a lot of experience. So we would love to share that experience with newer communities, but also learn from each other. So we are working together with other open source communities to be able to feel that a little bit better.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't feel like it, but we are, as a community, we are way ahead of a lot of other communities in the community health department. Not in all areas and not in all communities, but there are a lot of communities who come to us for support and questions and guidance.
Yeah.
So we feel that there's a great opportunity to do a lot more information sharing among various open source communities, whether they call it a community health team or a conflict resolution team, whatever they call it.
Yeah.
We think there's a lot of opportunity there.
I think one of the things that's really unique about Drupal compared to many other open source projects is that we are such a very large distributed community, and we have a lot of different community spaces that have grown and evolved and changed over time, and so a lot of other open source projects are either a much smaller community of developers, or they might have their governance might come from a sponsoring, their sponsor might be a company, like a Google or a Facebook or a Microsoft. And Drupal is completely independent, right, in terms of project governance. So that makes, and we've been doing this a long time. So that gives us some kind of different experiences than, other projects we've heard of where they're like, well, we had this issue in our community, but both of the people involved were employees of the same company, and so the company HR just took care of it, right? We don't have that in Drupal. We have to come up with new mechanisms and new structures in order to be able to address issues.
And I think it's also part of the ongoing learning aspect of becoming a better community, being better community health. Code of conduct trainings. We all did the code of conduct training, and I still feel like even though we've been doing it a while, we still have learned a lot, little things that you could do better. So while doing a code of conduct, being a code of conduct contact. So.
Excellent. So, and then the final item on this slide before we move on is just improved documentation of new community health roles. And Mike has already answered the question in Slack, which came up related to this. Again, we've only been meeting since March. We have been meeting every month, and we do have. We were fortunate enough to get the DA to help us upgrade our Slack instance, so we are able to bring in a lot more people and have that space where we can kind of collaborate both synchronously and asynchronously. So, yeah. So Mike, do you want to answer Ruby's question? The process now for having new people join the CWG, do people apply or do they have to be nominated? How do members leave? Are you allowed to leave?
Yeah,
So,
I'd like to ask that last question as well.
yeah,
I'm with Ruby on that.
so Ruby, I'm going to assume here that you're talking about the core kind of conflict resolution team, as opposed to the well, I guess we can answer both, right?
Both.
So with conflict resolution, generally speaking, the way that it has worked in is that we have identified folks in the community who we think would be a good fit for the conflict resolution team, and then that person. So we would, go through this process and talk with them and make sure they really want to sign up for it, and understand what they're getting themselves in for, and then they would need to be approved by that review panel, and then in terms of leaving, we've had a pretty good turnover, I think, over the years, and it's just a conversation, and we have now the terms and the term limits, but beyond that, at any time, if someone is like, I need to take a break, or I really can't do this anymore, we have that conversation. We're a very psychologically safe group, so we can we're very open with each other about what's going on. You kind of have to be if you're doing this kind of work. And Rachel is a former member, and she left because she joined the DA staff, and you can't really, there was really no way that would work, right, from a conflict of interest perspective.
I don't think we, as long as I can remember, I don't think we've ever had anybody approach us directly and say, I want to be on the conflict resolution team. If so, it's been
I have.
I think you have.
Yeah. I haven't. Sometimes it's been
okay.
And you're like, sometimes it's a good fit, sometimes it's not, right?
Sometimes it might be a good fit, but then you also recognize it would be a great fit somewhere else, which is why the community health team is such an amazing thing, right? Because people fit, would do well there as well. So, but yeah, there's kind of a vetting process, like a process where we kind of talk to people.
Yeah, not that you mentioned, I don't think we've ever. I think the way, I can actually think of one or two instances. I think we're always open to the idea of them being involved somehow.
Yes.
I think we've talked to folks about being a subject matter expert first, which I think probably led to this whole community health team idea of providing some type of easier on-ramp.
Yeah, absolutely. Because even if you're coming in as a subject matter expert, well, you're still dealing with likely an issue, right? So, so it's not just like, does this person have the right temperament? Do they have the right, do they have the bandwidth to be able to work on this and everything? Because again, we're a volunteer team. It's also a question of, whether they, whether they can kind of manage that conflict resolution process, and it's tricky.
Yeah, and you need also to be able to say, I need to take some time, or I need to, I can't be involved with this, because like you said, it is mentally hard work. It's a lot of emotional labor. So we know of people that would be awesome, but we know they can't say no. So we don't want to put that on them, right? You don't, because it's hard. You have to be able to take a step back.
Yep. So we've only got a few more minutes left, although I think we are the last session of the day, and I don't think these rooms close. So if people want to continue the conversation, I want to make sure
we answer all your questions.
Well, let me get to the next slide. We have a couple more slides, two more slides, this slide and the next one, just to let folks know how we keep the community up to date. We do public versions of our minutes every week. We anonymize them, and we post them on Google Docs, and then promote them via Twitter. At Drupal Community is where you can kind of find out what's going on. Occasionally, and we have fortunately not had to do this in a while, we will issue a public statement if there is an issue that is involving the larger community or has extended beyond our community. Yeah, annual report on Drupal.org. I think we're just going to throw up the recording of this presentation. That's going to be our annual report this year. But we could have some stats, sort of like how many issues we've handled, stuff like that. We do have a public issue queue on Drupal.org. If you have a question or something that's not sensitive in nature, that's actually a venue. We present sessions, whether it's here or other camps and events, as needed. And of course, if you have an issue or concern, you can always go to our incident report form on Drupal.org. It's linked to from the Code of Conduct page, which is on the footer on every single page on Drupal.org. You can also email us at Drupal-CWG@Drupal.org. If you are interested in joining the community health team, we are definitely always on the lookout for good folks. Email us at Drupal-CWG@Drupal.org. Mike, if you want to go ahead and repaste that email address in there, that would be great.
Our calls are not open to join for everybody. Not because sometimes,
we have been posting recordings after the fact. We're not currently just kind of letting anyone in. We're going to have a conversation first. We want to make sure, because even though the being in the community health team, you're not dealing with sensitive or proprietary stuff, you still need to understand and agree to and follow the terms of our code of ethics. So that's part of that process as well as, of course, the code of conduct. You have to follow the code of conduct. So that's actually all of our slides. So Mike or Janan, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we field any questions that folks might have?
No, I'm about to paste the link in for our June minutes and video for anyone who's interested.
Perfect.
Yeah, so we have a lot of people that are interested, but the question is always about leaving, especially with the community health team. As soon as you need the time, we urge people to take it. We don't want it to be draining. We want the community as a whole to be better, but also the community members to stay healthy and safe, and so we make sure that that's also a priority.
Excellent. Any other questions from anyone in the audience? Or is everyone like, I'm done, I need to go to bed? If you're in North America, if you're in Europe, you're probably already asleep and are watching this on a recording.
Pacific West Coast is it's 6 p.m. West Coast, so
still.
Other than Rachel, is there anyone from let's say east of the US?
Well, thanks for having us, Amy June. All right. Well,
thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep. Take it easy, and we'll see you around. Thanks.